The Bawse Mom Podcast is a supportive space for mothers, whether expecting, new, or seasoned, wearing multiple hats, corporate babes, entrepreneurs, or serial workers, to come together, uplift each other, and discuss our challenges and celebrate our wins. With that being said, all right, Bawse Moms, let the movement begin. Hey, Bawse Mommies. Welcome to the Bawse Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Ashlei White, and I'm excited to share this journey with you, not only the journey of motherhood, but the journey of this podcast. I decided to create this podcast to share my experience with you ladies, but also introduce the experience of other mothers, whether they're expecting, new, or seasoned, to discuss their challenges and successes that they've had so far, and any advice that they could give to the ladies that are listening. This is such a overwhelming experience that I've had and my own journey that I'm just like, I have to talk about this. I have to come together with other ladies and learn more about their experiences and just overall motherhood, work-life balance, physical, mental health. I'm just so excited to share this with you all, and I thank you all for tuning in. So if you don't know me, I am an Atlanta, Georgia native. I attended the great Bethune-Cookman University, which is an HBCU out of Daytona Beach, Florida. Since then, I've moved around to a couple of different cities until I have decided to come back home to Atlanta as of 2020, since the pandemic began. I'm so happy to be home with my family and my friends and just start a new path, for my life, which is motherhood. So I found out that I was pregnant in October 2020. And when I tell you I was so nervous, like that feeling of seeing that positive pregnancy test, ladies, was just like, crazy to me. And I was just like, what am I going to do? I feel like many ladies probably felt the same way that I did. And I want this podcast to be as transparent and honest as possible. So I will let you all know that I did cry when I saw that positive test, and I was just so in shock. So I took the test at my best friend's lash studio, where I was actually getting ready to have my appointment with her. She was finishing up a client, so I decided to just go to the bathroom and do the test really quick because I hadn't been feeling well that week, and I kind of just wanted to rule out pregnancy. So I took the test. When I tell you that test turned positive so quickly, like I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, oh, this is really happening right now. Okay, cool. So I took the test back to my best friend and I just showed it to her. She was ecstatic and just started jumping for joy. Meanwhile, I started crying. So I don't know how many of you ladies can relate to that feeling, but I was just like, what the heck am I going to do? Which it's something new. And I feel like anytime you go through something new, whether it's pregnancy, a new job, or just anything really, you're just like, okay, how do I maneuver through this? And those are my thoughts. I'm like, how am I going to be a mom? As a little girl, I feel like I aspired to be a mother, played house, play with my baby dolls and my Barbie dolls, and, just imagine that day. And here it is, and I'm crying. So after, my best friend is just like, why are you crying? You're going to be a great mom. This is a blessing. Like, you should be happy right now. I'm like, I am happy. I just need to muster up the courage to think positive in all reality. So I wiped away the tears, got my lashes done, and I just was like, okay, now how am I going to tell my boyfriend I want to do something cute, even though it is spur of the moment, before I go home. So we actually went to Walgreens. I got one of those ultrasound frames. I taped the pregnancy test to the frame, and I got a little gift bag and put some stuffing in it. So I'm on my way home, and I'm just like nervous, just thinking like, okay, what is he going to say? How is he going to react? Like, we weren't in a space of talking about kids at the time. So we talked about how many kids we wanted, eventually, but we weren't planning. So, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to give him this bag, and we're just going to go from there. So he had actually just started barber school, and he was just got on the floor where he can cut, actual people's heads and not the mannequins. So he was actually excited to show me some of his videos where he started cutting. And so I walked in with the bag, and he was just like, oh babe, let me show you my cuts for today. So he's showing me, and I'm super excited for him and proud of him, but still in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm about to give him this shocking news. How do I say it? After us celebrating this win for him. So I just, mustered up the courage and said, hey, babe, I got you something today. And he's just looking like, well, it's not my birthday. It's not the holiday. Like, what could this be? But still happy and surprised that I got him something. So I'm like, yeah, just open the bag. So he takes out the frame. And at first I think he was a little confused. And then he sees the test and he's just like mouth dropped, like looking like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And I'm like, okay, he probably going through the same emotions that I just went through like an hour ago. So I'm just standing there and he like walks around the living room and he just gives me a hug. When I tell you, like, that was such a sigh of relief for me that I just was like, okay, that's one, wall that just came down. And now we got to tell our families. So I was nervous to tell my parents, not going to lie. Like, I was just like, yeah, I don't think that they're ready for this news. So we told his mom first. She's out in California, so we had to call her. And she was just super happy. Like, she just kept saying it's a boy from the beginning. And, he was wanting a boy, of course. Like, all guys want a little mini me. And I was just like, yeah, I want a boy first because I do want more kids and I want my boy to be older. So, we're embracing this boy talk. And so, it's all smiles, super happy. So now I'm like, okay, we have to go tell my parents who are here in Atlanta. And I wanted to tell them face to face just because I wanted to see their reactions. So we went to the store, we got some baby booties, put them in a gift bag, and we headed over to my parents' house. This is like a few days later. And my dad was not there initially. My mom was just there. So I'm like, we're already nervous. So I was just ready to get it over with at that point. Like, okay, let's just tell her and then we can tell him when he comes in. So we gave her the bag. I'm like, hey, Mom, we brought you something. And she's just looking like, oh, what'd y'all bring me? Like, not expecting anything, of course. Definitely not expecting any baby news. So she opens the bag and she pulls out the booties and she's just looking at me. She's looking at him and she's like, y'all are joking. Like, that's the first thing she said. Y'all are kidding me, right? And I'm like, no. And I'm laughing, but I'm like, no, we're not. Like, why would I drive all the way over here? Y'all live a little too far for me to drive out here for a joke. So, no, we're not joking. And then she looks at my boyfriend and he's just like shaking his head like, yep, this is really happening. And she just kept saying, no, no, no. And then she finally just paused and she's like, okay, well, I hope it's a boy. So, funny story, my mom really wanted me to be a boy. So this was just like, great news to share with her because she's finally getting her boy and her grandson. And, I'm super happy for her. So now we're like, okay, other grandma talking about boy too. So still embracing the boy talk. So now we still just got to tell my dad. And he finally gets home and we had repackaged the bag with the booties in it. And so I was like, hey, Dad, we brought you something. So he's looking like, what did y'all get me? And he opens it. He sees the baby booties and he looks at us. He looked at my mom thinking that she was in on it too. So he's like, how long you known about this? And she's like, I just found out. So he was just like, who are these for? London, which is their dog. So I'm like, no, those are baby booties, not doggy booties. So he instantly looks at my boyfriend and was like, let's go have a talk. So I was like, oh boy, what does that mean? But, it ended up being a great conversation. They just talked about fatherhood and, him just really explaining to my boyfriend about his journey as a father. I am the only child, so I'm very much, spoiled to say the least, but he was just able to have that man-to-man talk with him, which was super cute too. So that was our journey of just finding out about the baby. And so, after that and all those jitters and everybody being excited, like my dad prayed over us, those were just walls of relief that just went down. I was just like, okay, great. Now let's talk about like work-life balance. Like, I'm almost 30 and I'm still like, in the phase where I'm like, I want to have fun. I'm working, I'm doing all these things. I have all these goals that I want to accomplish. Like, how am I going to do that? But also embark on this journey of motherhood. And to me, that's what a boss mom does. You wear multiple hats on top of being a mother. I work in corporate. I'm a business partner. Shout out to Honey Hair Co. Come shop with me in Atlanta, ladies. I'm a travel agent, so I'm an entrepreneur. And then starting this podcast is something else that I've added onto my plate. So really just thinking of how that balance is going to be. Not to mention that, my job was a contract, a 3-month contract when I first started. And I was just like, well, how is this going to work? Luckily, God blessed me by getting my contract extended. I'm still employed with them. So I'm just super excited about that. But I decided, I can't let those negative thoughts, overcrowd like my thoughts on this baby. Like, I don't want to have those negative thoughts and then not be able to thoroughly enjoy my pregnancy. So I just said to myself, like, I want this pregnancy to be as stress-free as possible. I want to be as happy as possible. I talk a lot to my family and my friends that already have kids and just like, how did you do it? How are you doing it still, being a mom and just being able to balance everything. And I watch other mothers like that I don't know, watching from a distance, and I'm just seeing, their successes. So I'm like, it's very much, an opportunity for me to push myself and really just still accomplish those things, but also embrace my journey in pregnancy. So I just also wanted to be able to share my pregnancy so far. So I would say that I have definitely had an easy pregnancy so far. I'm about 7.5 months in, so we're right around the corner. But in the beginning, like, I didn't really have like any morning sickness, really, no weird cravings, honestly. It was just really easy. But about 2 months into the pregnancy, I did experience spotting and a little bleeding, but it was probably more so on the spotting side that just scared the heck out of me, honestly. And when I saw it that day, I just burst into tears like, oh no, why is this happening? Like, I'm not supposed to be bleeding. And I actually just kept saying that as I was crying, like, you're not supposed to be bleeding. You're not supposed to be bleeding. I'm not supposed to, be going through this. My boyfriend's looking at me like, babe, just calm down. It's going to be okay. Like, really trying to be positive and speak positivity into me, because in those moments, like, I was really not hearing anything else other than what I was seeing. And so he's like, just lay down for a second, take a deep breath. We called our moms and they're like, go to the emergency room just to make sure everything is okay, but you're fine. And so he couldn't come to the emergency room with me, which was devastating in that moment, because I'm like, I really just, want you in here with me. I don't want to be in here. It's COVID, this high bill. Everybody knows like that emergency bill is definitely not one to play with. So I'm just like, I really don't want to be here. But I did sit there for about 7 hours. They did multiple tests and, it came to the conclusion that everything was fine, which it is. He's very healthy. It was just one of those experiences. They were like, in the beginning, sometimes this happens with mothers as the baby is trying to attach itself to the walls within the uterus. So, it's fine, but, glad you came in to check it out and sent me on my way. So that was probably the hardest thing I faced within the pregnancy. And since then, it's been great. Not high risk or anything like that. So I'm just, honestly grateful and trusting the process that I'm going through. But even though I know, everyone goes through their own process, and we're just so strong how we take, into account those things. My advice to mothers is just to try to be as happy as you can be, honestly, through the pregnancy, and enjoy those happy moments that you're having. Despite, any negativity or any downfalls that you may endure, like, just try to really think about those happy moments if you can, because we can't control everything But one of those things that we can't control is our happiness and our emotions. And I just told myself that I wanted to have a stress-free, happy pregnancy. I don't want anything to transpire to the baby. So yeah, like that's been my journey with that. Also, as you all know, we're in this pandemic. So going through pregnancy during the pandemic is just crazy in itself. I never thought that I would be going through my first pregnancy during a pandemic. And I'm sure no other mother thought that either. If you are pregnant or you've had your child during the pandemic, it's definitely just not exciting within itself, right? So you have to find your own excitement. But I will say, like, the downfall in that is going to these appointments alone, having to see the ultrasound by yourself and not being able to experience it with the loved ones that you thought you would be able to is just like a Debbie Downer, right? And so I wish my boyfriend could come to these appointments, but he takes me to them. So I'm so thankful that he tries to be as involved as he can. He did get to go to my very first ultrasound because I was seeing a different gynecologist here in Atlanta who did allow one person to come with you. So that was cool. And they confirmed the pregnancy. He was super excited about that. But recently, we actually did the 3D, 4D, and a 5D ultrasound. I found a place through Instagram, See Me Mommy 4D. And Amber is amazing. I do encourage any of the ladies here in Atlanta, if you're pregnant, to definitely go see her, because that was just an amazing experience within itself. Like, it's so much better than the 2D. You get to see your baby's features. You get to see who he looks like or she. The whole time I've been pregnant up until this point anyways, I've always just been thinking, like, what is my baby going to look like? Is he going to look like me? Is he going to look like his dad? Is he going to look like one of our parents? Like, just thinking all these things and having all these thoughts about his features. And so it was really cool to experience that and confirm that he does look like both of us. We both have pretty strong genes, so we will always just go back and forth like, he's going to look like me, he's going to look like me. So that was really cool. And then, of course, the memories. So when he does come, we'll be able to compare what he looks like to the actual photos. But I have seen, people do it, or ladies do it previously before me, and their babies look the same. So I'm super excited about that. But I definitely encourage expecting mothers to get that. Even if you're not in Atlanta, find a place that does that type of ultrasound in your home or in your city, and check that out, because that's a really cool thing to experience. But my advice to any expecting mothers would be, get as much knowledge as you can, while you're pregnant. Google is my best friend. If you're like me, I Google everything. Probably shouldn't do that, but I do. I also do, go to family and friends that have already gone through this experience and try to seek out advice, as much advice as I can. Of course, we know that, you're never ready until it happens. Until you're in the situation, you really don't know what you're going to do, how you're going to react. I've told my mom and my boyfriend's mom, like, when baby gets here, you all definitely are going to have to, like, stay with us for a few weeks, because I'm not going to know what I'm doing. And they always laugh, like, we got you, you'll be fine. But I'm still, super nervous. I feel like I have those same jitters that I had when I first found out I was pregnant as we're nearing the end, because in reality, he'll be here in a few weeks. So I'm like really just trying to get my mind together, and just think about being the best mom that I can be. But I'm so excited about it. And that's just, what I would tell an expecting mother, is just to embrace it, but be informed, get as much information as you can so that you can be as ready as you can possibly be once your baby gets here. But I want to thank you, ladies, for tuning in with me for this first episode. I'm so nervous. I don't really, share a lot publicly. So this is a platform for me that I'm excited to be on, and I'm excited to share this opportunity with you ladies. So thank you for turning in to the first episode of the Bawse Mom Podcast, and I can't wait to share the series with you ladies. I have great topics that I want to discuss with you, and also amazing mothers that I've connected with, whether I know them personally or I met them through social media, and they have great stories to tell as well. So I want to be able to share those opportunities and words of advice and encouragement with you ladies as well. So until next time, remember, being a boss mom is a movement. So stay motivated and stay bossy. The Bawse Mom Podcast can be found on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Make sure to subscribe and tune in every Sunday.